It's been a weird season for the defending champions, right? And it seems that Steph Curry's return didn't help them gather any momentum either, as they lost once again. Yeah, the Warriors welcome Curry back against the Suns. Whoever has written this season's storyline has a lot of imagination. You don't get this many twists and turns in a Night Shyamalan film, but that's the NBA for you. For the Warriors, it hasn't been enough that they're the defending champions, as they're enduring a tough campaign. Hovering around the .500 mark, the Warriors have failed to gain any momentum this season.
Foul, count it, and one. Curry crossover, three-pointer, bang!
And it didn't help when Steph dislocated his shoulder in December. Without having a strict minutes restriction, Steph did return to the lineup, and it was desperately needed too. After all, he'd missed 11 games for the Golden State Warriors, and they could do with a winning run. And even the most negative Warrior fan would tell you that they had a great chance against the Suns. But it just wasn't meant to be, right?
Double digits after a 50-point second quarter. That was in San Francisco. Curry and embracements.
The Warriors ended up losing to an injury-plagued Suns team without Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton. The Suns made the trip to San Francisco to play the defending champions at the Chase Center. Now, the thing about the Warriors is that despite being horrible this season, they've actually been really good at home. In fact, only the top two teams in the West had lost fewer games than the Warriors at home.
Think of him as Terrell's little brother, right? Do not have him at that age. Steph Curry's doing everything now.
And that means you wouldn't fancy your chances, especially with your best players missing. As it would turn out, though, the Suns' second-string roster didn't get the memo. Monty Williams rallied his troops and sent them into battle, and they didn't disappoint. Of course, when you step on the court and the usual five of the Warriors is back in the shape of Curry, Clay, Draymond, Wiggins, and Looney, you aren't exactly giving yourself the best chance to win the game.
Curry missing the free throws. Look at Booker. Look at this. Pedal to the metal and drop the sledgehammer. Look at Monty Williams.
But the Suns produced a statement win. Michael Bridges led the team in scoring as Torrey Craig was on hand to grab 14 rebounds. Although it'd be unfair to name only those two, the win was truly a team effort. 4 players scored 19 or more points, and 4 players had more than 8 rebounds for the Suns as they dominated the paint.
Hoping in the 25-minute range. Bridges from the corner.
Even the Splash Brothers couldn't handle the heat from the Suns. I'm not sorry. Yeah, Steph and Clay couldn't inspire the Warriors to win. Even Jordan Poole produced 27 points from the bench, but Steph's 24 on his return and Clay's game-high 29 wasn't sufficient for the Warriors.
Curry. Oh, my goodness, Steph Curry.
They just never got going. The start of the game was quite slow as they had a 5-point deficit going into the second quarter. But the second and third quarters were a completely different madness from Phoenix. They held the Warriors to only 19 points in the second as they increased their lead to 14. And then they matched their intensity in the third and increased the lead to 19 going into the final quarter.
Lee gives up the dribble. Bridges with a purpose. The fadeaway is good.
It was the perfect display from the Suns. Despite the Warriors exploding in the fourth, they fell to a 113-125 loss. Steph in particular, though, didn't seem like his usual self. He scored 24, but by Steph's standards, it was a low night. He only made 8 of his 22 field goal attempts and made 5 of his 15 three-point attempts. Curry even struggled to influence the game in other ways, as he only had 3 assists in the entire game, and ended the game with only 1 rebound.
Concerning. The good news is, if I'm Steve Kerr, the message is we do have what it takes to turn it around, but it's not going to be...
Maybe should have been eased in, but these kind of games are common, especially when you're making a return from an injury. And that's why, despite Steph's return, the Warriors couldn't do much. Although if your star player is scoring 24, you do expect to run out of comfortable winners. But Klay Thompson was quick to point out where the Warriors went wrong. Klay explained that the Warriors relaxed a bit too much. And it would seem that the coach agrees with Klay's analysis as well. In fact, even their fans would have noticed that much. I certainly couldn't believe that the Warriors lacked so much energy. For a team known to run on momentum shifts and gear changes, there weren't enough of them.
Layup off the glass is good. Oh, razzle-dazzle from Steph Curry.
They did have the likes of Steph and Wiggins returning, and maybe, as Clay pointed out, the Warriors took the Suns a little too easily. Even Steph explained how such returns are a hit or miss considering the rust.
Washington's got 21. Curry finds his spot and cans it from long.
He didn't seem too bothered with his shooting, and someone as good as him should never be bothered because of a low night. In hindsight, it was the right decision too. After a slow return, Steph's getting back in his groove. The first 3 games that Curry played since returning from his injury were below average. Let's just say that's the right word, because for many players, they'd be career best nights. However, with the dust finally shaken off, Steph stretched his wings in recent games, and it seems that the Warriors have their talisman back.
For the races after the rebound. Into Landale, around Lee, and then accelerates and spins and nails it.
It's not really surprising either, but Curry's averaging 32.5 points in the last 4 games, after only managing 19 in the first 3 after his return from injury.
2 defenders on him. Man, take a bow. Incredible.
And they've been some big displays as well. Steph went off against the Washington Wizards, scoring 41 while grabbing 7 rebounds. It was vintage Steph as he drained 6 three-pointers.
Good weak side help. Steph Curry dribbles into a 3.
Before following up with a 29-point display against the Celtics in Boston, but it wasn't enough to win the game. Then, the baby-faced assassin sat out the Cavs game before returning to action against the Nets at Chase Center. He shot 50% from the three-point range for his 26 points, but couldn't keep the Kyrie-led Nets quiet as they won a thriller. And most recently, the Warriors came out on top in Rivals Week against the Memphis Grizzlies, thanks to Jordan Poole's late winner, even though Steph was ejected, again because of throwing his mouthpiece. The Chef led the game in points, scoring 34 points in only 35 minutes of action. This run has helped the Warriors back point to 500. They're a half game away from the playoff spot. The race for the playoffs in the West is heating up to be a fantastic one.
Basketball talent and the growth of this game has been amazing. Draymond and Steph.
Just take a look at the Western Conference table. It is so tight. There are at least 10 teams in contention for 3 spots. That's nuts. After all, due to injuries, the Pelicans are on a 6-game losing run. In fact, all 4 top teams in the West are currently on losing runs. This means that the Pelicans, in 4th, are only a half game ahead of the Clippers. It's insanity. The Lakers have a 23-26 record, and they're currently 13th. The Pelicans have a 26-23 record, and they're 4th. A 6-game swing is all that separates 10 teams. Luckily for the Warriors, they've managed to remain firmly in contention in the time that Steph was injured. And now, with the Golden Boy catching fire, they'll fancy their chances of making the playoffs with ease as there's still so much to play for.
So down 7. And Curry, drop it in a 3.
I mean, come on, we haven't even had the All-Star break yet. But if the Warriors want to make the playoffs, they'll need to ensure that everyone steps up. It wouldn't be a Steph Curry carry job, that's for sure, because it wouldn't be enough. And Golden State is definitely golden in Chase Center. But they need to start putting together a better run on the road. They've lost the second most games away from home in the entire division. Only the Rockets have lost more. So, it's time to buckle up for the defending champions. It's also time for us to say goodbye. See you in the next one.